In 280 BCE, the Italian peninsula trembled under the arrival of King Pyrrhus of Epirus and his fearsome war elephants, a force unlike anything the Romans had ever faced. These were not mere animals. They were monstrous engines of destruction, towering over men and horses, sometimes weighing more than 6 tons and standing over 10 feet tall, often armored and with iron-tipped tusks designed to gore and crush enemy soldiers. Perched atop wooden towers were archers raining arrows down from near-impossible heights, adding yet another layer of terror to an already overwhelming assault. Roman formations, hardened by centuries of warfare, faltered under the sheer size, sound, and chaos of the beasts. Shields splintered under the impact, cavalry scattered in panic, and soldiers who would have faced swords and spears with courage froze at the monstrous sight. It seemed as though nothing could stop the unstoppable charge, as men and horses alike were thrown into disarray, crushed beneath the elephant's immense bulk. But Rome, ever the school of adaptation and ingenuity, discovered something extraordinary. Elephants were deeply sensitive to sound, particularly the high-pitched squeal of pigs. This seemingly absurd weakness became a weapon, a psychological lever capable of turning the war elephant's fearsome charge into chaos. The Romans, recognizing both the brilliance and brutality of the solution, would soon transform an ordinary farmyard creature into a terrifying tool of war, setting the stage for one of history's strangest and most ingenious military tactics. Before the Romans could unleash their porcine countermeasure, it's crucial to understand the sheer terror these elephants inspired on the battlefield. Pyrrhus had brought these beasts from Greece, creatures trained to be living engines of death, capable of turning the tide of battle with a single thunderous charge. Soldiers who could face armored cavalry or a hail of arrows without flinching would break at the sight of these titanic animals, while horses panicked at their trumpeting calls and unfamiliar smell, rendering the Roman cavalry largely useless. Their tusks were like battering rams, their trunks could snatch men from shields, and their massive weight crushed everything in their path. Early encounters, such as the Battle of Heraclea, had already demonstrated their overwhelming advantage, leaving Roman formations shattered and morale in tatters. Yet the Romans were not merely observers, they were quick learners. Stories of Greek defenders using pigs doused in pitch and set aflame during the siege of Megara in 266 BCE reached them, illustrating how terror, fire, and sound could be weaponized against these living siege engines. The flaming pigs had created chaos. The elephants panicked, turned on their own ranks, and trampled their allies in blind fear. The Romans took note, realizing that success on the battlefield might require a combination of ingenuity, cruelty, and unorthodox tactics. For Rome, this was the perfect example of how adaptability and psychological warfare could neutralize even the most formidable opponents, turning what appeared to be insurmountable odds into an opportunity for victory. By 275 BCE, at the decisive Battle of Beneventum, the Romans finally faced Pyrrhus's elephants with a plan born of observation, desperation, and ruthless ingenuity. While historians debate the details, ancient sources suggest that Roman commanders employed the high-pitched, terrified squeals of pigs to unnerve the beasts, exploiting their sensitive hearing and natural aversion to fire. As the massive elephants charged, the Roman line braced for the impossible, holding shields against crushing weight, spears poised against unstoppable tusks. Then came the chaos. The sound of squealing pigs, driven forward by Roman soldiers, possibly coated in pitch and flames, filled the battlefield with a horrifying cacophony. For the elephants, this was a sensory assault unlike anything they had encountered. The smell of burning pitch, the sight of dancing flames, and the agonizing screams of terrified animals combined to trigger pure panic. Trained and disciplined though they were, the elephants lost control, spinning and stampeding back into their own ranks, trampling soldiers who had once been waiting to advance behind them. The enemy's meticulously prepared battle plan disintegrated under the onslaught of their own panicked beasts, and the Roman soldiers, disciplined and opportunistic, surged forward to exploit the chaos. What unfolded was not just a victory of brute strength but a triumph of psychological warfare, strategy, and audacious ingenuity, turning the enemy's deadliest weapon into a liability and proving that, in the crucible of battle, intellect and adaptability could overcome overwhelming power. The use of squealing pigs against elephants exemplifies the Romans' ruthless pragmatism and unmatched adaptability on the battlefield. While the idea of setting animals on fire may horrify modern sensibilities, to a Roman commander facing annihilation, morality was a luxury. Victory was everything. Their aim was simple but brilliant: transform the enemy's greatest strength into a catastrophic weakness, forcing the elephants to destroy themselves and destabilize the opposing army. Even evidence like a Roman bronze coin, minted around this era and depicting both an elephant and a pig, hints at how deeply the Romans associated these animals with tactical advantage and psychological manipulation. It reveals a military culture that prized intelligence, observation, and innovation over mere honor. The Romans understood that facing a new, terrifying weapon required thinking beyond conventional means, exploiting every weakness and using fear itself as a tool. The squealing pigs were not merely a curiosity. They were an instrument of strategy, an early form of psychological warfare, and a testament to the Romans' ability to convert desperation into decisive action. In this way, the Roman legions demonstrated that discipline and courage alone were insufficient. True victory came from creativity, adaptability, and the willingness to do whatever it took to turn the tide of battle in their favor. Ultimately, the story of the war pigs stands as one of the most bizarre and ingenious episodes in Roman military history, a testament to their creativity, adaptability, and sheer determination to win at any cost. Victory was not achieved through superior numbers, advanced weapons, or unbreakable formations alone. It came from understanding the psychology of the enemy and turning it against them. The panicked elephants, the agonizing squeals of pigs, and the chaos that engulfed Pyrrhus's ranks allowed the Romans to exploit every advantage, advancing against a demoralized, disordered enemy and securing triumph from the jaws of seemingly impossible odds. The war pig tactic may never have been standard practice, but it illustrates the Romans' willingness to innovate in moments of desperation, transforming fear into a weapon and showing that survival often demanded ruthless ingenuity. When we imagine Roman legions, we often picture disciplined formations, shining armor, and the eagle standard. But the reality was far stranger, more brutal, and far more inventive than legend alone suggests. Even a humble farm animal, terrified and screaming, could shape the outcome of a battle, reminding us that in the crucible of war, strategy, psychology, and clever adaptation could rival the mightiest warriors and deadliest weapons. The war pig remains a haunting, unforgettable example of how intelligence, resourcefulness, and audacity could overcome overwhelming power and leave a legacy that echoes across history.